I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:06. This is the April 16th meeting of the Timberlane Regional School Board. As chair of the school board, I am finding that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen, and if necessary, they cannot participate in this meeting, sorry. We have previously noticed the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. That information is included on the Timberlane website, public.timberlane.net/SAU/TRSB. Instructions are on the board's website also. If anybody has a problem with access to this meeting, please call 603-382-6541, extension 3955. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We will start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So Kat, if you could take the roll, please.
Brian Boyle. Lee Doobie.
I am here. I am in transit in my car. I am alone. I will be arriving home in approximately 10 minutes, at which time I'll be in my office also alone, but there will be other members of my household present throughout the household.
Kim Farah.
I am present at the meeting. There are other family members in the household, but not in this room.
Barbara Kishka.
I'm present. I am alone. Excuse me. I'm present. I'm alone in the office, cool office, and I have a husband elsewhere in the house.
Am I muted?
You are not.
I can
Brian.
hear you, Brian.
We'll come back to you. Sheila Lowe's.
I am here and alone in the house.
Sarah Mockamer.
I'm here. I'm alone in my office. There are other members of my family in the house.
Sean O'Neill.
I am present. I have other members of my household that are in the building, but I am alone in my office.
Kristen Savage.
I am here. I am alone in my house, but other members of my household will be coming home shortly.
Jennifer Silva. Jen, you're on mute.
Here, alone in my office with other people roaming the house.
And now we'll go back to Brian.
Brian, you need to unmute.
No, still can't hear you. No.
Now we can hear you, Brian.
They can't hear you?
No,
Can
we
anybody
can
hear
hear
me?
Brian now.
We can hear you.
Hi, Sharon.
Does he have everybody turned off, Brian?
Maybe.
We can hear you, Brian.
Brian, you here?
Text Kim and ask her.
Ooh, Brian, can you hear us?
All right, we'll move on to Dr. Metzler.
Present. I am alone in the room and other members are in my house.
And Kyle Duffy.
I am present. I'm alone in the room, but there are other members of my family in the house.
Okay, and we just have Brian left.
Brian, can you hear us?
Can someone text him?
Are we on? Yes.
Brian, can you hear us?
Now I can hear you.
Oh, there you
you go.
Okay, I'm sorry, everyone's giving me these funny looks. All right.
Brian, are you
You
here?
know they want you.
It's not easy being me.
Brian, as part of the roll call, can you just give us your present and who's in the home, please?
I am here. There is another family member in the home, not in the same room.
Your roll call is complete. The presence of other district administrators as well as the TTA officers will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Great, thank you. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Don't know how to do this in sync. Okay, so moving on, so we're looking for approval of the minutes from the last meeting. That would be last week, which was April 9th. Those are in your agenda packets. I'll entertain a motion.
I so moved.
Barbara Kitska moves to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
Second, John Silva.
Jen seconds. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay.
Oh, I just had one thing.
Sure.
So I noticed that there were timestamps, there were placeholders for timestamps in the minutes, but they're not inserted yet.
They will be inserted once the right piece of video comes up for me to do it on. Mrs. Belcher told me that it was fine for the draft as long as I inserted them for the final.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions on the minutes? Kat, if you could take a roll call vote for approval of the minutes, I'm looking. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mackemar,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes, and don't forget Barbara.
And for some reason, she's not on this piece.
Hmm.
Mrs. Kichka.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Duffy, did you have anything to say to the board, the public today?
Just a little brief update. Good evening, everybody. I hope we're all staying well as these trying times continue, moving into our 5th week without school. And as we all know, the governor closed schools for the remainder of the year and moved to online learning. So this will be a long time, but we're going to persevere. I've heard a lot of good things about our online learning program as we continue to develop it. Students are doing lots of interactive learning, whether it be Zoom, live Google Docs, or otherwise like screencasts. A lot of us are sad here that school is going to be physically out for the rest of the year. I think we can keep going through this new environment and succeed and try and better everyone's learning as we can. So thank yous again to the students, staff, administration, who are all working really hard to keep morale up and make sure that we're still learning through this online process. But that's what I got for tonight. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Duffy, and I second your opinions there. And I know it's going to be difficult here now, just getting notice that these schools are closed for the rest of the year. Especially my heart goes out to those seniors and those end of year activities, because my daughter was just there 2 years ago, and there's a lot that goes on. I'm sure the superintendent, now that we've gotten notice, we will be moving towards trying to do what we can given the environment. And not knowing when everything is going to open up, to at least try to, make it right by these students that are graduating and the rest of the students too. And I appreciate all the efforts on behalf of the students also. This is tough for students. I know my students are struggling online with me too. So I appreciate everybody's efforts and thank you for that, Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, I would like to, Kim,
Go
if I
ahead,
could
Sean.
interject, is that I like to echo that same statement. I like to see all the senior activities, the prom, so forth, find out what options we have available that we could do this post, when we can, meet up as a society again and make all these events happen, because I don't think that you guys should be um, pay a big price for all this stuff. I mean, we want to try to do it what's right and what's best. And I would like to understand also from Dr. Metzler, is that can these events happen post graduation and so forth? Those are kind of a lot of different kind of anomalies will have to be thought about, to move this forward.
Kim, if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
So many of these conversations that we're having right now happened, weeks ago in the event that we're in the position that we're in now. So we have a tremendously creative staff. So lots of ideas are being talked about, but you are correct. We're trying to find ways to celebrate especially with the class of 2020, but this is true about all of our transition grades, whether it's elementary to middle or middle to high, and certainly high school into college, career, in the military. So those conversations are taking place, and we're trying to figure out how we can do a lot of these activities, whether they be remotely or, are there things that we could drag into July or maybe even to early August. But I think at some point we're going to have to make decisions that it's remotely or we're not having it. And obviously graduations and year-end celebrations and honors banquets and awards and all those sorts of things. They're in the planning stages. I know we had this down a little bit later in the on the agenda as far as graduation, end of school year. This is where I thought we would talk a little bit more about this, but please be assured that they're in the planning stages now, and with the official word coming today, they know that the likelihood we're not going to be back in June, so we need to make these events happen. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and we certainly should have something to report out in early May now that the word is official.
We do really appreciate all of your concerns. Thank you guys for working to put this together, and thanks for the SAU staff, high school staff, middle school, elementary school, just trying to make sure that these events feel right, and we're kind of getting what we've worked for the past many years.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on. There's no delegates and individuals. So the next order of business is the remote instruction update, and there are several items here: video conferencing, attendance, food service, and third-party vendor contracts. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Metzler for this portion.
Great, thank you, Dr. Farah. We have quite a few of our staff members here prepared to report out. Some of this you have in executive summary form. So I'll start with Sandy Allaire, and she could call on the different individuals that will need to report out on particular items, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Okay, hi everyone, good evening. We have, as Dr. Metzler pointed out, we have several different subtopics under the general heading of the remote instruction update. So you have much more detail in the executive summaries that we provided you, but we did want to give you a general overview of some of the most pertinent information that aligns to requests that were made either last week or at the previous board meeting or in the interim. So for starters, I know that there were some questions raised regarding the state of New Hampshire. The Department of Education has currently rated, I guess, for lack of a better term, SAUs across the state in terms of their remote instruction readiness. So this is, these are documents that are found on the Department of Education's website. If you go to their COVID-19 remote instruction page and look under schools, there's a subheading for operations, and you can find these materials that we are referencing. So one of the things that they've produced two what they refer to as heat maps that align to 5 different indicators. Actually, there are 6 if you include a lack of response. But there are various indicators for each SAU that identify the connection with readiness for the implementation of remote learning. So the first of those heat maps was produced on March 15th. That was the date.
All right, Mrs. Allaire, can Ken or somebody post this agenda packet so maybe the public can see what you're talking about? This
Sure.
is page 9 of 19 on this packet.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to
There's-
No,
interrupt, but
that would be great to have the visual as well so people can understand what we're talking about. Thank you.
right.
So I'll give a little background while we're trying to get
I'm
that.
gonna share my screen. I have it pulled up.
Okay.
Just gonna ask, Dean, do you have the agenda? Can you share your screen now?
I'm working on that now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So just to give you a little background, the first of those heat maps, which is what the Department of Education has decided to call them, was published on March 15th. That was the date that the governor first declared the mandatory closure of all public schools and the transition to remote instruction. So that was, in fact, prior to the transition for Timberlane officially to the onset of remote learning. So Dean, if you can scroll to the final page, those are the indicators right there, but the map that I am referring to can be found as an addendum to that executive summary. Okay, so I hope that you're all looking at, this would be the heat map that was produced on March 22nd. So I'm gonna back up a little bit and just speak to the one that was produced on the 15th. So again, on the 15th, that was the first date that remote instruction was declared. We did have a transitional period across the state. Here in Timberlane, we took 2 days. That would have been the 16th and the 17th. There was a Monday and Tuesday to prepare. And remote learning officially started here in Timberlane on March 18th, which was a Wednesday. So on the first heat map, you're actually looking at a visual of the second, but on the first heat map, we as a SAU were characterized in orange. And so that color corresponds to number 2, which states that those SAUs were not currently conducting remote learning. However, it is possible to implement within a month. So on that first map, we were in fact not fully implementing. We were in our planning periods. But again, we started remote learning officially 4 days after that. On March 22nd, which is a week after that first announcement by the governor, this second heat map that you're looking at right now was published by the Department of Education. So on this heat map, SAU 55, so Timberlane and Hampstead were both combined because the map refers to SAUs, not districts. So we were one of 24 SAUs across the state that were in category 5, which is the dark green, which indicates that remote learning is fully implemented. So we have been in that status since the first week into remote learning across the state. We had done some reflection about our readiness for that. Wanted to speak a little bit to, we in our district have a long-standing approach to technology integration. We have had our one-to-one initiative in place, transitioning across the secondary schools, grades 6 through 12 for the past 3 to 4 years. We did, as you all know, at the elementary level, we did not enter remote learning with a one-to-one device initiative for elementary schools. But within the first 2 weeks, we took steps to reach out to elementary families to gauge their need and to make Chromebooks and devices available to those elementary families so that we could have all students with a device at home to support them in engaging in their instruction. Additionally, we, as you know, have been implementing online learning in Blizzard Bag days. We are not using the same model that we typically do. However, our teachers are using Google Classroom as the primary platform to post assignments, collect work, to communicate with students. There is an option for comments where our students can reach out to their teachers. They can submit their work directly there, and there are some other features. So Google Classroom has been in place as the primary platform for remote communication on online learning days for quite some time. We immediately were able to use that model as the basis for our communication with our students, and that went over pretty seamlessly. We did not have Google Classroom in place for grades pre-K through 2. However, again, within the first week of remote learning, through cooperation with our elementary schools and our technology department, we quickly transitioned those grades to Google Classroom as well and provided links on all elementary school websites and the district website for parents and students to link directly to those classrooms so that they could easily understand how that model worked, along with resources on our parent page for students and parents and teachers on the teacher page to transition to that platform. So that was one thing that helped us to move in this direction. And there are many other apps, software programs that are regularly used across all grade levels. We've been able to rely on those and continue with those moving forward. So we've really adapted a blended learning approach to this. We spoke a couple weeks ago about our model to try to combine both synchronous instruction through optional video conferencing, along with a blended asynchronous model where we might have a flipped classroom. We can have live Google Docs that Kyle was speaking to a little while ago. Our teachers are using screencasts, posting video links, posting discussion boards through Google Classroom or through Google Docs to have live interaction. And so there are a variety of platforms that have been in use. We are working with families and students and teachers continuously to move forward. We are not looking to just kind of keep the status quo and review. The goal is to continue learning, to deepen learning ideally, but again, focusing on essential learning and really looking at those key core learning ideas and competencies to make sure that we are hitting on those prior to the end of the year. So that is kind of an update on that map. I know there were some questions about that. The DOE has not produced a third map. They only have the two. So that has not been updated since the 22nd. But again, those are available on Department of Ed's website if you would like to look at those yourselves. So also under the remote instruction update, we did want to update you on video conferencing and where we were at. I know that there were some questions about the platforms that were being used. So first, we just want to thank you again for working with our Timberlane Teachers Association to work out in a memorandum of understanding for video conferencing. So just to remind everyone who's listening, video conferencing in accordance with that MOU is both voluntary and non-evaluative for our staff. That being said, we do have many of our staff members who have embraced this platform as an optional platform. We as an administrative team through the curriculum department, the technology department have developed a variety of professional development resources to support teachers in learning how to both navigate the platforms, but also to put in place some security and safety protocols so that we can maintain online security for both staff and students, and also prevent anyone who should not be in these online video sessions from entering unbeknownst to the teacher. So Zoom was our first video conferencing platform that was district approved. Our staff have been invited to numerous at this point live training sessions through Zoom. We do have those training materials posted for them as well if they prefer to do that on their own, but they have had the opportunity to participate in a Zoom video conference to understand and learn about the features in live time. And we have had hundreds of staff members participate in those over the past 2 weeks. We are also looking to transition to Google Meet as a second video conferencing platform. Google Meet was formerly known as Google Hangouts. Google changed the name to Google Meet quite recently. We are looking, right now, we're in the process of preparing guideline documents for that platform, as well as training materials. But again, we are looking to make sure that before we officially open something up, we have everything available to support our teachers in ensuring online security and privacy, as well as all necessary materials to support them in understanding best practices in using this platform. Just a reminder, we did send out parental permission forms. So for students to participate in these optional sessions, if teachers choose to schedule them, they do have to have parental permission. And we approached an opt-in approach to permission. So if we have the form on file, we share that out with all teachers. We to date, as of today, there are only 43 parents who have declined permission. However, we have 316 parents who have yet to reply. So we have sent out 2 mass emails through School Messenger to all parents across the district. And we have also reached out directly at the school level to those families who have not yet replied. Teachers in Zoom are using, there is a waiting room feature. So before a teacher officially begins a session, they can see students as they are entering in the waiting room. So they have their list of students who have parental permission. And if they see that there's a student in the waiting room who does not have permission, the teacher is able to communicate privately with that student and let them know that they do not have a signed permission slip. And the teacher unfortunately can't let them in the session, but yet it is a way to communicate directly with that family through the student that that permission form is outstanding. And we've had some success with getting some of those forms signed through that direct communication in live time. So just moving on to kind of feedback around the use of video conferencing. We did put out an optional staff survey late last week regarding usage. We had a very low rate of response. We had less than 60 responses district-wide of our professional staff. You know, there were quite a few who had used it, some who were planning for the future, but we did not feel that that number of responses was statistically significant to really judge usage at this point based on those responses. That being said, we did put out a thought exchange, again, district-wide to our staff to obtain questions, feedback, concerns around video conferencing. We had 152 staff members respond to that. The feedback was largely positive. So the majority of staff who responded were appreciative of the professional development resources that had been provided, that they had participated in. Many people who had already engaged in video conferencing shared that these sessions had been a good forum for class meetings, for extra help sessions, question and answer opportunities, or really just opportunities to check in and see one another. So I think that had been a positive aspect of the sessions thus far. There also were some concerns, however, that were raised. Those did connect to privacy concerns. So again, we've put a lot of measures in place to maintain privacy. However, there are several staff members who do still have concerns about that. Online security as well. There are some comments that suggested that with scheduled sessions, there was mixed participation amongst the students. So even if they did have signed permission slips, not all students in the class had been able to join and participate in the optional sessions. Staff are also questioning the voluntary nature and feeling some community pressure to use this and are voicing that they would like to use it in an appropriate way when it would be a viable option for them. And then many of them are speaking to the challenges that they are experiencing that are common to many of us really in all professions to balance work and home now that we're living in a different world. So we did receive that feedback that closed on Wednesday, and we've been sorting through that feedback, and we will share that out with all staff so that they can see district-wide kind of the general feedback that they had provided to us around video conferencing. I did want to turn this over to Ken Henderson. He's going to update you on technology access at the elementary level, but also across the district.
All right, thank you, Sandy. So just to get a few quick updates, this past week on Tuesday, we had another Chromebook pickup event. This was like the other ones where parents would drive up. They were drive-up events. The Chromebooks were again sanitized and cleaned. The personnel, they handed them out were wearing masks and gloves. So in total, between all these events, we've handed out 285 Chromebooks, and we've shipped another 13 to students in grades 6 through 12, part of the one-to-one program that have had their Chromebooks break since the start of remote learning. So out of all the families that have expressed a need or that we've reached out because we suspected there was a need, only a handful, we counted 5 district-wide that have not come in yet to pick up a device. We are following up with them to see where they're at, so, see if they still need one, and if they do, how we can make arrangements to get them one. Some other information I wanted to share is that we've been contacted we contacted 10 families in the district that we know of that have no internet access at their house. We let them all know about the internet service providers that are providing accommodations during the pandemic. Out of those 10, we know of 2 that are all set. They've got their internet hooked and rocking and rolling. The other ones we're following up with, although we do suspect many of them are all set now because their work is being turned in digitally and handed in on time. One thing to come out of last week's meeting was the desire to inform parents of their ability on how to get into Google Classroom with the Guardian view. We did provide that documentation on how to do that, as well as a how-to video. We put that on our COVID-19 resource page, and we sent out a notification earlier this week communicating that and some other updates, including student wellness during these times and weekly lunch menus for those in need of the food assistance program. Sandy talked a little bit about that in her part as well, about those notifications that went out.
So Ken, I just wanted to reiterate, so we've got over 3,500 students, and out of those 3,500 students, fewer than 5 or 10 have are lacking access to a Chromebook or internet.
That's what we know, that is correct.
That is very impressive. I am very impressed, and to the reach out teams, and I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, I do want to give some kudos to the schools too. I mean, we did send out some mass emails, but some of these families are hard to reach, as you can imagine. And the schools did an outstanding job of getting a hold of them and making sure they would come in and get a device. So kudos to the schools, the principals, and support staff at those schools. And my techs too, my techs went in there. They're the ones that got them already. Facilities helped clean them. So it was a complete district team effort.
That is fabulous. And how are we doing on Chromebooks? How many Chromebooks do we have left for dealing with breakages and things like that?
We have plenty. Yeah, and it's more of an issue of logistics on how to get them to the students. I have to set up, I mean, there's going to be more breaks. There's going to be, other students that come forward. I think with this announcement by the governor, one thing we're suspecting is that families that have multiple children that maybe have made a go of it with a Chromebook or 2. I mean, maybe they have, we have districts that are families that have 4 or 5 children in their house. They've been, maybe 2 Chromebooks has done it so far. They may be thinking about they need another 1 or 2. So we're looking logistically, how do we get them more Chromebooks? So we may do something weekly at a school. I don't really know yet. I got to kind of work that with, facilities and, the schools. So, but to answer your question, no, we have enough Chromebooks. I'm not worried.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Oh, Kim's on mute.
Yes, Jen, go ahead. Go ahead, Jen, sorry.
Maybe I misunderstood before, Ken, but I just wanted to try and clarify. So I thought that Zoom was only being installed on devices once parents had returned that permission.
On the Chromebooks, Jen, we don't have, I mean, you can still access it from personal devices, of course. But the Chromebooks, there's a Zoom extension that goes into Chrome. They should only be getting it once they approve, the parent turns in that video permission form. There's a couple checks and balances. That's the first one. The other is the teacher verifying through their list. They have lists at each school on who's approved and who's not.
Yeah,
so
no, I wasn't thinking that people were accessing outside of their district issued devices. I was just trying to think, how can we remove that from the teacher's plate from having to check a list every time?
Yeah, no, I get that. I wish there was a way, and that's one of the things we're grappling with Google Meet, is how do we handle that? We'll figure it out in terms of deploying it and doing the same type of thing with the video permission. Only trying to get it to those kids that have opted in, their parents have opted them in. So something we're figuring out.
And then my other comment with regards to, yes, I understand the teachers are feeling the community pressure, probably from myself as well, about this video conferencing. But again, I just want to take a moment to point out how beneficial this face-to-face time can be for so many students. The parents that are calling me, that are reaching out to me, that are asking, you know, why don't their kids have this time? The kids are relying on each other, and they're creating their own Zoom conferences sometimes to try and help support one another to get some of this work done. You know, and that can be challenging, you know, especially when kids are now turning in things and they're working together. Sometimes, you know, they don't want to look like they're, I don't want to say having the same answers or whatever, but I still feel like that face-to-face time for that support is very, very important, especially now that we're looking long-term for the rest of the school year.
I think we also need to think about this because at my institution, and it's obviously other institutions also, this may resurge itself here in the fall, or we may not be through this in the fall. And so I think I appreciate the work you're doing and the different platforms you're using and the technology, but one of the things that you should be thinking about is, especially now we're going to start moving into another budget year, is what else do we need in terms of technology? Should we be in this situation again in October or November next year that we're going to need to upgrade or add to make everybody's life easier, teachers, staff, whatever. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we start to move into budget season and go through this a little bit longer. I'm sure the superintendent would agree with me that if there are things that you need that we didn't budget for because we didn't know we were going to be shut down for 3 months, please feel free to go to him and let's get this. And you know, teachers, staff, whoever, any ideas that no one's expected this. So we have to think outside the box.
Totally
I have a
agree.
question.
Appreciate that.
John?
Yeah, this is to you, Sandy. On your map that you had on the from the Department of Education,
Yes.
all these different color coordinations, and I believe that this is a self-assessment.
So I think Dr. Metzer might be able to speak to that. I did not complete the survey that came, but there are surveys that are sent to the SAUs with, I believe, specific questions regarding their readiness. So that it's based on responses from the SAUs to the Department of Education's inquiries. And then from those responses, the Department of Ed produces that map. So
it was due to our particular color coordination was due to our administration doing a self-assessment then. Is that correct, Dr. Metzler?
They sent a very brief survey weeks ago. I don't have the survey in front of me. It wasn't very extensive, I can tell you that.
And I think just to clarify here, this is talking about remote learning, which is different than synchronous learning.
that's right.
That is correct, Dr. Farah. This is not about video conferencing. It's about remote learning.
Okay, any other questions? I'm not quite sure. I think we've covered the first 2 parts on the agenda. So we're looking at there, or did you want to talk more about attendance and Power School?
So those are actually the next part of the update.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to turn it over to Lucy Kanotis to speak to elementary, and then Mark Pedersen is going to speak to secondary for those 2 items.
Okay, thank you. And board members, there's executive summary here in the end of your packets on this also.
Great, good evening. At the elementary level, we have been keeping track of participation from week 1. District-wide, we had just under 50 families not participating in weeks 1 and 2. You'll remember week 1 was a shortened week, only 3 days. So we kind of looked at week 1 and 2 together. On week 3, we held our first device distribution, which increased participation right away in that week. And then the last week, we also had a second device distribution, which brings us to our current participation data. So what you're looking at was collected on Wednesday, just yesterday, for work that was due in week 4. And teachers have assigned work due either at the end of the week on the Friday or Monday of this week for week 4. So our elementary data wrapping up week 4 shows a 97 to 100% participation rate at all of the schools. And all students who did not participate in week 4 have been contacted. In many cases, there were some device pickups on Tuesday, and that has started the plan for those students. But you will see some more detailed information about the responses for those students not participating. But we have created plans with all families to ensure engagement moving forward.
Any questions on the elementary presentation? Okay, thank you very much. And
thank you.
We'll move on to the next.
I just wanted to remark 97% participation for the elementary is great.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
So this is Mark Pedersen here. It's a little bit more complicated at the secondary level because you know, we have kids taking multiple classes, and attendance attendance and participation is tracked in each one of those separately. So you know, to put together a whole school-wide attendance participation number or data set was a little bit trickier. We were able to really find a good system that worked for week 4, and those are some of the numbers I'm going to report out on. But that doesn't mean that during weeks 1, 2, and 3, teachers weren't reaching out to families, to students, to administrators, and to the guidance or the school counselors to really make sure that those kids that they weren't engaging with were okay. And we're really encouraging those kids to get involved, to get engaged, and to work on this work. So, you know, weeks 1 through 3 were really the teachers were focused on engaging with the students. Once we get onto week 4, as I'm going to point out, you know, it became a systematic building-wide approach, and we had a little bit more data at that point. So in week 4, there were 24 students at the middle school who are being contacted and supported by administrators or school counselors. So these 24 students had not participated in any of their classes. So that's roughly around 3%. That would be an absentee rate, which is almost equivalent to like our day-to-day absentee rate, which I think is amazing. That says a lot about our teachers are engaging our students in their classes. And at only 3% of our students not engaging in any of their classes whatsoever. And those administrators and counselors are definitely reaching out to those students. Some of those students had already been reached out to. Some of them had already had some well-being checks. The families had some well-being checks from the local police departments as well. The high school, again, similar numbers, similar system. Since weeks 1, 2, and 3, the teachers themselves were doing a lot of great work reaching out to families. I mean, I even heard stories of teachers buying materials with their own money, volunteering to bring it to kids or ship it to kids so kids can do the work, which was just, you know, amazing to see that these teachers were putting their heart out for our kids. You know, and then, like I said, in week 4, it became more systemic or a system-wide approach. And we had 38 students at the high school, which is, again, roughly 3%, maybe 3.5% not participating, which means we had 96.5% of our students participating during this time period. So again, it says a lot about the engagement level of our students and what our teachers are doing to ensure that our students, you know, don't fall through those cracks. You know, across all schools in the district, our focus remains on the whole child. Academic, social, and emotional well-being are the priorities for all of our students and all of our faculty, all of our staff in the Timberland Regional School District. And then the other piece, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Pedersen, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay, I was just gonna, the last little piece of this executive summary is on student feedback in Power School. I believe there were some questions from last week. You know, we are expecting teachers to update their grades and to reach out to families, reach out to students, give feedback. You know, there's a lot of feedback going back and forth with students that aren't just grade-based. So, you know, there's a lot of feedback on papers. There's a lot of feedback on Google Classroom where kids are asking questions directly. a lot of emails. I mean, I talked with teachers who are getting emails up to 100, 200 emails a day from students. So, you know, feedback isn't just grades in PowerSchool, but with that being said, you know, we are asking teachers to have grades turned around in a reasonable time. The staff handbooks call for grades to be updated within a week, and so that 2-week time frame is a 2-week from when the assignment is assigned. So assignments are assigned on, say, a Monday. Kids are handing them in on a Friday or that following Monday. And then teachers, a lot of teachers are getting that work turned around within 1 week. And they're getting up to 300 assignments at once. So then to collect 300 assignments at once, grade those assignments, get them into PowerSchool all at the same time as assigning new assignments and, you know, possibly giving feedback through Google Docs, through Google Classroom, through emails. A lot of these teachers are doing screencasts, teaching new material through that means, holding help sessions. So, you know, our teachers are doing some impressive things given the circumstances that they're facing.
Okay, I think Sheila had a question, and then Jen.
Is this including the evening division?
Yes, you mean for PowerSchool?
For PowerSchool, for attendance, for the lot of it?
Yes, so those numbers that teachers, I mean, I had looked at, when those teachers gave me their attendance reports, I think I looked at every single teacher's report. So yes, those are including evening division as well. PowerSchool, the expectations are that things are graded on that same time frame as well in evening division.
Okay, and are we hearing from CTE, like if Salem's not hearing from a child or Pinkerton's not hearing from a child?
So I don't have that information in front of me. I can talk to Mr. Chuljan, and I'm sure that they are.
I didn't expect you to have it in front of you. I was just wondering if they were reporting, if you knew if they were reporting in.
I can talk to Mr. Chuljan, and I can get back to you for next week on that one.
All right, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Okay, Jen?
So I just wanted to thank you for getting that information about Google Classroom out to the parents as quickly as you did. I don't know how many parents are listening, but I would say that the feedback in Google Classroom on the students' work is really pretty quick. And the grades in PowerSchool, you know, I don't want to say I'm not as concerned about them. They're definitely getting put in there, but I think that the teachers are being very, I don't know if lenient is the right word, but very understanding with the students that the way the back and forth exchange is happening via email or via Google Chat or whatever it is, to get those corrections in versus just sitting in the classroom and having that conversation about, you know, maybe we look at this or adjust that. I think the students do have a little bit more time before those grades are necessarily put right in PowerSchool, because, I mean, this is just not the most efficient way to be learning and back and forth. But for parents who really want to have an understanding of the feedback that their students are getting and the progress on the work that they're completing, it's in Google Classroom, from what I see anyway.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Pedersen, to your point about grading up to 300 assignments each week, I think that also brings up, again, having to look at the fact that, you know, remotely, sometimes you're having to do more written out assignments than you would if you're informally assessing during class, and to, you know, be thinking about maybe some more of these electronic homework platforms that might be more robust when you're in a virtual environment like this. So again, trying to support the work that we're looking at now and may potentially be looking at coming in the fall.
Agreed. Thank you.
Let's see. So we are, sorry, scrolling back up to my. So now we're on to the food service program. And that's who's speaking to food service.
Good evening, Kim. This is Jeff.
Hi.
Hello. I've included an executive summary in your packets for this evening. Just a few updates for you on the program. As of April 9th, we had an interest from students of 260 students. As of April 15th, we had 358. So I'd like to note that there has been a significant increase in interest, and a lot of it seemed to come after last week's school board meeting. So I think, and Jen and a few others on the board, I think were instrumental in having that discussion and raising the points on need, and participation in the program is open to everyone, and it's been, I think, helpful in increasing the interest that we've had as far as participation, or at least interest in the program. I would like to make clear that once a parent has indicated an interest in their child, they're included in our count. So if they call, we do have a number at the SAU that is monitored. That number is 382-6119, extension 2255. Once a parent indicates interest for their student is included in our count, and there's nothing further that needs to happen. They can just plan to show up at the designated location. As of right now, I think that we're on track increasing participation in the meal program itself. You can see that as of April 9th, we had 80 students served, 160 meals altogether, and on Monday of this week, we were up to 129, and you can see the numbers, the sheer number of breakfast and lunch were served, 387 breakfasts and lunch included in those packets, in those bags, sorry. We also have modified the Danville Elementary location. We have not made a change as of yet. That change will be effective Monday, April 20th, and that location will be Danville Elementary. The reason for that is that we want to make sure and communicate strongly and effectively to our community and to those stakeholders when changes like this happen. It seemed like we had a tremendous amount of success last week communicating through this school board meeting. So I think this is a great place to start. We notified all of those who were picking up in Danville today that on Monday they will be picking up at Danville Elementary. And the hours again for service are 11:15 to noon, and that's on Monday and Thursday each week. Any questions from the board?
Go ahead, Barbara.
Well, just once again, I'm really grateful, Mr. Dowd, that you and the food service employees and everybody else who got this together. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, good job, Def.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question in regards to when I'm looking at numbers here. You're saying, and I'll go by the 49 number, that there were 260 interested, but it looks like we served 129. Are we preparing 260 meals? And then if so, where are the rest going?
No, we're not. No, our food service manager, John Fratello, has a pretty keen idea based on the numbers or the counts that we have for interest, what our actuals are. I couldn't tell you the exact number that were prepared, but he's a lot closer than what the numbers suggest. So we had 358 who were interested. We did not prepare 350, enough bags for 358 students.
Okay.
Usually very close. And in fact, he prepares extra bags. He estimates what we need for each location, and he has extra bags. And all of our food service workers at the locations, if they start running low, can actually reach out to him, and we have those bags in stow, if you will, to be able to deliver to a location that might be running a little heavier than anticipated.
Okay, great. And one thing I do want to encourage parents or anybody who's listening to this, and I don't know if people can tell, but there are 100 people on this call right now listening. I encourage you to reach out to staff, teachers, somebody, if you need assistance. And if you don't want to go to those particular locations, I'm sure I've had conversations with the superintendents that there can be arrangements made so that your family gets the help they need without feeling like they need to come out and let the rest of the community know. I'm a pretty private person, so I would understand how that goes. So please reach out to somebody. The school is here. We have the resources. The federal government's helping out so that we can continue to help families. Or if you know of families that need help, let us know so that we can help those people.
Kim?
Sheila.
Can I bring up something now while we're on the food service? This is,
Sure.
Jeff, I'd like to say thank you and thank you to Whitson's because this has really been outstanding. But my question now is, knowing that we're staying in remote learning and we don't quite have an end date for us yet, can you look into what would happen during the summer months?
I can, and obviously that was really not a consideration until today, until we've had confirmation of this program running or continuing to run. I do know that there have been some waivers issued, and it's ironic because the program that we're now qualifying under, again, because of those waivers issued by the USDA, is actually called a summer serving program.
Okay.
So I can certainly look into that and see what that looks like for the summer.
Could you please, because I don't anticipate this need going away during the summer.
Well, and Sheila, if I could point out as well, and I don't know how that's going to fit into our program, and certainly we'll see what we can do, but I don't know that the programs that a lot of our students may be participating in during the summer, if they go to summer camp, if they go to their rec center, or any of the summer programs that they may be participating in, that they themselves may be offering a summer serving option. I'm not certain what the status of those programs will be during the summer, if those programs will be operating, if they'll be able to have those students, have our students, you know.
That's why I'm asking, Jeff, is because we don't know what these recreation,
programs.
You know, in Sandown, we have a 7-week recreation that we run. It's 7-week, you know, day program that we run. I don't know, considering the climate that we're in right now, if those are going to run. So, you know, I know there's a lot more expenses on people now because everybody is home. There's a lot more, you know, you're buying more food, you're using more electricity and everything else. So the only thing you're really saving on is gas right now. But if you could look into that, just so that we have a handle on it before the end of the school year.
So I'll ask Kat to take that as an action item, that we look at the summer program for food service. It may not come back next week or the next 2 weeks, but clearly it's something we need to look at here over the course of the summer, so that the school board will come back and look at that. So I'll talk to the superintendent about us bringing it back at some point here in the next month as we move forward and have a better idea what the federal government's going to be doing and the state. You know, New England's going to take a hit this summer because we rely a lot on tourism, and these places are not going to be able to open up the way they did. So, I agree. Okay. Sorry, let me move back here. All right. Any other questions on food service? Moving on to third-party vendor contracts. Let's turn this over to the superintendent. Before I do, at the last meeting, the board had received communication from council regarding third-party vendor contracts. The board has now read that. The superintendent's apprised of that. And I think we're looking for an action item here. So Dr. Metzler, I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Farah. Yes, following our last meeting, I had an opportunity to work with our legal counsel. And so we are ready when the board, you know, authorizes to engage in some of those side letter agreements or, you know, with our vendors. So Attorney O'Shaughnessy and Jeff Dowd would execute that as soon as you grant the authority.
So we're looking for a motion for the board to grant the superintendent authority to negotiate with board counsel in regards to third-party vendor contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Kitska makes a motion, Mr. O'Neill seconds. Any discussion? Kat, could you take the roll, please?
Okay, Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Juby,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Would you go, Jen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. This is very much complicated, these third-party vendor contracts, by what's going on at the federal government now. So, you know, there will be legal expenses associated with this as we try to navigate our way through something that no one anticipated in any of these contracts. Okay, so moving on.
If I could?
Yes, go ahead.
Just want to be clear on the spirit. I get the motion. The desired outcome is to look to see if we can reduce some of the costs with some of the services that we may not be getting in the totality that we normally would have been getting under normal times, correct?
Correct, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
And certainly if we need to talk about that more, we can with council, and you have the opportunity to talk to council. And I know that we had the board discussed with council in general what, you know, how this was going to move forward with the SAU staff. Barb?
So one thing in particular we were looking at is if that we have a contract and they are no longer employing their employees. So this isn't to be mean to people, but making sure that they're holding up their end.
That's
correct.
If I could.
Yep.
Yeah, Attorney O'Shaughnessy has been involved not just with our district, but with other districts. So some of this work has already started. So this will not come as any great surprise, I think. And each vendor is a little bit different. So I have a good feeling that we'll be able to do some really good work here through our business office. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to graduation, end of school year. I'll turn this back over to Dr. Metzler. In your board packet, I think there's a executive summary regarding hours and days. I think it's right near the end. Is that where it is? Well, board members, it's in your packet. So Dr. Metzler?
It's
excellent. Well, I talked a little bit about this earlier today, and I certainly don't want to try to build this plane while it's in the sky. A lot of these conversations have been taking place, so we're gonna have to make a list of the essential activities. When I met with principals several weeks ago, and again this week, we talked about identifying those year-end events and thinking of ways that we could offer them consistently across the board. You know, graduations, year-end celebrations, award banquets, those sorts of things. So we're going to need to make a list at some point in the next, give us a few weeks. We'll be able to come back with, what we think we can offer and how we can offer it. I know talking to Principal Woodworth, he's been getting quite a few of ideas sent his way about the way we could do a graduation. Not that I want to commit to this just yet, but just for example, even a parade like where cars are driving through and their diplomas are actually being handed to the cars, and trying to figure out a way that we can do that we can celebrate and with our classes. So we'll work on that. The executive summary that came in late today had to do with the last day of school. So thanks to Sandy Allaire and certainly others that counting up hours and trying to figure out where we needed to be. And we are confident that that we can propose a May 29th last day of school. If you make a calendar change, that we will have met the minimum hours required by the Department of Education for New Hampshire, and certainly we can still give the break in April that our teachers and students definitely need. So that was the second half of that agenda item.
Okay, thank you. So does the board need to take action on that end date?
You would, because only the board can alter the calendar.
Okay.
I also wanted to add, though, that I consulted with TTA, and they were in agreement with what was proposed, and had an opportunity just to run this by a couple board members too. So we've included all the stakeholders. We're looking at how to hold final exams, what they might look like, pass, fail. Those discussions are still taking place, but the teachers union was consulted earlier today with what we were going to bring forward tonight.
So do you think is the board willing to take action on this tonight, or would you prefer to hold off another week and review this a little bit more? It's not in the agenda packet, it's part of not in the main agenda packet, it's an add-on. So what's the board's pleasure here? Are we all good with a May 29th end date? Any objections to a May 29th end date, Sheila?
I think we should make a motion and set the dates now because I think parents really need to know. I think parents are very antsy, and I think they probably are very much looking forward to an April break. But I think this helps parents out a little bit, being able to see clearly what's coming up because it's been in fluctuation for so long. So I'd like to make a motion that we keep the April vacation as no school, we're on vacation, and the end date of school to be May 29th.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion by
I'll second
Mrs.
it.
Lowe, second by Mrs. Savage. Any discussion on that motion? Mrs. Kitska?
So I'm good with the students leaving on May 29th, but is there an opportunity to keep the teachers a little later so we can figure out what we're going to do for transitioning from the end of this year and starting next year?
That's a great point, Barbara. The in discussion with TTA, that we have them for a certain number of days, so we'll work that out. They're certainly we're going to need them into June, so that will take place. This is a student's last day of school. The work calendar we'll arrange that with TTA, but there's a total number of days that they're obligated to.
Dr. Metzler, could you get back to us with that date for them, for the teachers?
Correct. It would right now it would be the same day that it normally would be. So there'd be several weeks of that we'd be able to do professional development and planning.
That's
so
exactly
it
what I
would
was
be
gonna
the
ask.
same last date that you currently have on your calendar for teachers.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Duffy?
Just a quick question on the specifics of this. Are the seniors still going to get out prior to May 29th as the regular students would be getting out on May 29th? Or would that change in this as well?
Boy, Carl, that's a great question.
That's a great question. I'm going to ask Mark Pedersen if he's still on with Sandy. Did we take a look at the seniors, what their last day would be in comparison to the rest of the students?
I can, Mark, I'll let you jump into, but just in looking at hours, so the Department of Education, if you are going by hours, they require at the secondary level a minimum number of hours of, I'm looking in here, I want to say it is 990. So if you look at that May 29th date that you're looking at, we are at 1,000 hours. So that is 10 hours. So we could consider letting our seniors out a day and 4 hours earlier than their classmates, but other than that, they would not be meeting the state minimum standards for hours of instruction. So, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Pedersen as well.
And one piece that I was just going to add is, a lot of that time that when seniors are done early, is spent getting ready for graduation, is spent, you've got the senior picnic, you have all sorts of those events, and not knowing what those events are going to be like this year, we looked at what we needed to do for the kids and what we needed to do for everything, and we felt as though having it at this end date at the same, just made the most sense.
And Kyle, I would imagine, student voice is going to be very important, as it always is. Obviously, it's one of our goals, but I think as we prioritize and we plan these events, the leadership, students like yourself and other leaders are going to need to help really frame and shape what that's going to look like, because this is new for all of us. And I think your perspective will be, obviously will be taken into great consideration and certainly will help define the outcomes.
I appreciate it.
I know I got an email from the College Board today, maybe it was yesterday, about SATs. And I know in New Hampshire, the SAT is the grade 11 standardized test. So I know the College Board had said that they were looking beyond June, maybe into the fall, as when they were going to be able to offer an SAT. But has the state weighed in at all about how they're going to handle that as far as is it going to be part of the state standardized test of the school still, or are parents going to have to do that on their own?
I can only speak, John, to the most recent thing I saw, which was prior to today's announcement, is that they are communicating with districts that they were holding off to make a decision about the end of the school year. They were, as you said, in communication with the College Board as to whether or not it would be something that they would extend. But at this point, it's not looking likely that it will happen this year as the state test. I don't want to commit to that. But based on the communication I've seen, it's not likely that that will happen this year. As for the summer and fall, they haven't made a decision about that yet. So I think what I saw recently through this state level communication, a group that I'm part of, there's been talk of it possibly being voluntary. But again, that's just talk at this point, and they have not decided on it.
Kim, if I could, I have a call with the commissioner tomorrow at noon, and I would imagine that this will be one of the topics that will get defined. Today was pretty much the announcement of remote learning for the rest of the year, and they kept our Friday call at noon. So these are the kinds of things I think now will get flushed out now that we know how the year is going to end.
Mm-hmm. So in part of my question for asking that was one to try and understand if parents need to be keeping on top of those testing dates when they're available and scheduling and paying for our own students to take the test, but also for any SAT prep work. I know during the school year when the kids are in school, typically they get some of that during the school day when they're in school, and I didn't know if there would be any option for them if we're only going until May 29th, maybe in the summer or something to try and engage them to get them prepared to take that.
A motion on the floor.
Okay. It's a good question. We'll have to see what we can do about that. Sorry, Barbara.
Thank you. You're muted.
I'd like to amend. Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion on the floor in respect to Kyle, and move that the seniors be let go after half day on May 27th, so they get out a day and a half early.
I'm not against it, but I don't think we usually have to make a motion to that effect because we don't usually do that traditionally with the end of the school year. Dr. Metzler? I don't think we need I don't think we need an addendum. I think we have to set the last day, correct?
That's correct. And if you set the last day, we're certainly going to work this out with the senior class. That's the week of finals. And so, that day and a half I think is more of a technicality than anything else. I think the last day is important that you set the calendar, and then we'll work out with the senior class how the rest of that works. So if they need a break a day and a half early, I think, Kyle, you're most likely going to be engaging in some sort of virtual activity during that time, I would imagine. So we just need to plan that and get that scheduled.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the spirit of the amendment, but typically it's worked as long as we set the last day. The staff works out the senior activities. Okay, so I would like to call the question. Kat, could you take the roll call, please? This is on the motion to keep April vacation week and to end school on May 29th.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Dr.
I
Farah,
just hope that this
one last
gives the
thing.
parents a little bit of clarity.
There was, a really good, Kristen brought this up earlier today, a really good question. How are students going to be able to enter buildings and get their belongings, year-end wrap-up? So we're going to need to figure that out. It's going to be complicated with social distancing, but we need to find a way. And so I'll be working with facilities and with Ken to try to communicate a way and come up with some sort of schedule. So students, your belongings are safe in the schools, but we're going to have to figure out a way to get access so that you can get your belongings. So that's something we need to plan, and we'll certainly share that with you once we have some sort of plan. We have plenty of time. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on now to policy JIA. This is an informational action. Jen or Lee, I'll turn it over to you for this.
So yeah, I'm not prepared to speak to it this evening. I didn't get the agenda packet until late this afternoon. It wasn't posted, and honestly,
Lee, you have a lot of echo.
is that better?
No. Well, can I just, so JIA, we briefly talked about it last time we met. I think it's really something that needed a board discussion about what direction the board really wanted to go with this policy.
What's your opinion here, Jen, on this policy? You know, I was looking at it again, and it looks like New Hampshire School Board Association is saying that they're suggesting that we rescind this policy. And it looks like in red, what you have here is that you'd still like a few sentences of this policy here, I think, just to alert board members that students should have certain due process rights, and then also lead them into the policy JICD. Is that the hope here by keeping this, even though it's recommended to be removed?
I don't know that New Hampshire School Board.
I'm sorry, legal counsel recommended.
Well, that was the conversation that we had. I thought that was a conversation that we were going to have with council that I don't think really fully happened before all of this happened. So the issue here is we do have a lot of documents out there that reference policy JIA. So if you rescind this, then you're going to have to change every other document. So then the question that the policy committee had, and what we came up with as an option was to put in what you see here, just reaffirming that students facing discipline will be afforded all due process rights given by law, because that was the crux of the issue that I think the board really wanted to reinforce. Without, be careful with my wording here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be careful with my wording here on this one.
Well, I guess my question then is, I
think the board was very divided about striking that language in red because of what had transpired. So I don't know what the will of the board is. Does the board want to continue participating in these hearings or not? I guess that's the question.
Well, here's, and I'm going to ask the superintendent this question, because this policy was, I don't remember, doesn't it have somewhere the last time it was updated? It was revised 7/25/19, and I recall at that time that there was conversation that over the course of however many years that it was rare to non-existent that students were suspended for more than 10 days. So I don't want to put something into a policy that's going to be onerous for the board, but my understanding is that typically we don't see suspensions of more than 10 days.
Dr. Farah, that's correct. But the piece that's missing there is the hearings always took place. So the hearings that the board was having were hearings that either myself or another member of the staff, Susan Rasko or somebody would have been having at the SAU. It was this language here brought that hearing process to the board on day 11. Potentially day 11. A lot of times it had to do with a reentry plan. You've been through this a number of times, so there's a lot that goes into the hearing.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm following that really, because the change that was made in July said that the board will hear recommendations for more than 10 days.
That's correct. Those are the hearings that I have. They're recommendations. That's where the decision is made. Lots of
So-
times it puts a more official kind of set of expectations on the reentry into school. You know, what happened was
But so what, to
the
Kim's
attorney-
point though, Kim was saying she was under the impression that those don't happen very often, and you're saying those do happen very often.
the going past 10 days does not happen, but the hearings themselves happen quite frequently.
So you recommend that students are suspended beyond 10 days quite frequently, but then don't suspend them for beyond 10 days.
That meeting is a very important meeting to have, whether it's held by the board or whether it's held at the SAU or elsewhere. When students engage in very serious infractions, we need to make sure that they understand that they're serious and that there's a way to remedy or a way for them to understand the seriousness really is the best way to say it, and that that we don't want them to reoccur. So short of that, that's really what the purpose is. Now, are there times, you know, those can result in outside placements. They can result in a number of different things, and they take a couple of different lanes. You know, one's a special ed lane, one's a regular ed lane, and you know, we work those out internally. But I can tell you that one good thing, you know, from the hearings, from what I understood, you know, behavior improved quite a bit at our high school during that period of time. You know, it just happened that that's a real busy time of the year from February really through April vacation is really when we have our most of our more of infractions than at other times during the year.
Well, we've also currently have a more detailed procedure in place as to how this process works if a student is going to be looking to be, or superintendent's going to be looking to suspend a student for more than 10 days. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, well, I would say that much of that already took place anyway, but yeah, a checklist, if you will. Again, I don't meet with every student that engages in those. Sometimes other people handle them because of different reasons, scheduling conflicts, or it may be, like I said, it could be a special ed issue or something along those lines. But I do think that's a very important part of the process in terms of managing student behavior.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that.
Okay, so this is the first read on this policy, correct? Second read, sorry, hang on. Just looking back here. My thought here is because not getting, this is informational action, so this would be first read. I don't think we've taken any action here.
We had first read on it last time.
Excuse me?
I thought we had first read on it before. I could be wrong.
You actually tabled it, so this is.
Oh, we tabled it. Okay, I knew it came up before. Okay.
All right, so I'm looking for somebody here to make a motion. I think there's two ways that you can look at this, board members. Somebody could make the motion to approve this as a first reading as proposed by the policy committee, which would strike those sentences that you see in the policy. The other way the board could propose this is that it remains as is with the addition of the sentence at the bottom that says specific application can be found in policy JICD. I agree with Jen. I would not rescind this policy. I know legal counsel says revoke or repeal, but you're going to run into problems, as you said, Jen, because there are a lot of school documents that referred to this policy that then will lead them to other policies, correct?
Well, yes, and also policy JIA and JICD, I believe both reference JI and JICD, I believe both reference JIA, which means then we need to go back and look at those other two policies if we're going to rescind this policy. Because we wouldn't want to reference JIA in those other two if we don't have JIA anymore.
Right, and in addition to that, other than policies, I think these are, and maybe one of the staff members, Dr. Messler, these policies are referenced within school board, I don't know, like code of conduct or student handbooks and things.
They're in the rights and responsibilities handbook, I believe.
So I hate to rescind a policy and then there's a lot of, it's appearing in a lot of places. I'm not for rescinding the policy just for that reason, because it's referenced in a lot of places. So does somebody want to make a motion on a first read here as to, and it's up to the board, Sheila?
I want to make a motion to leave it as is.
Do you want to add the specific application could be found in policy JICD?
I want to leave it as is.
You mean,
Okay.
what does that mean?
I
With-
want to
with
leave
the-
it exactly the way it was back in June of 19.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a
Well, it was-
motion
It
on
was,
the,
it was actually changed in July of 19. So
I'm
if you
sorry,
move it back to
July of
June
19. Whatever
You're going to be looking at an old policy.
So you don't want to strike out what's stricken in red right now?
right, she wants, there's no changes. So the motion on the floor is to leave policy JIA as is.
Without
written.
any of that in red?
With no changes. Is there a second on that
Because-
motion? There's no
Okay.
second on that motion.
Next.
Is there another motion? Barbara?
I motion that we leave it as is, but add the specific application can be found in policy JICD.
So now the motion,
The problem with
motion is to
JICD
add,
it conflicts. That there's a conflict with the two policies. That's the problem with these policies. They don't. If you don't change one of them, they don't work together.
I'm sorry, when you're saying leave it as is,
I'm saying do not strike the part in red.
okay.
Do not remove the stricken.
And if you do not remove the stricken part, it conflicts with policy JICD as well as, and I know Mr. Dowd was in that policy committee meeting with me, and I don't know if he remembers. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this, but the sentence about due process rights shall be printed in the parent-student handbook. I believe we looked that up. Is it called the parent-student handbook or is it the rights and responsibilities handbook? I thought it was called something different, but minor detail.
Yeah, that's the same. Those are the same books.
Yeah.
Kim?
yes.
So we're not in school right now. I don't think we're going to need this policy for a while. I mean, we're talking about, it seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions. Is this something we really should just hold off on a little
I
bit
think
longer
so.
and talk to council and I mean, what's our rush to push this through tonight?
Right, there's
We
not,
don't
it's just
need
been
it.
bouncing
I
around
agree,
for a while.
Kristen.
I think it can bounce longer. I think we have other things, and I think this is too important of an issue to do in a situation like this. And I'd rather talk to council. I'd rather really think it through. And I think we should hold off on it until we can get back into a room, have council present, and really hammer it out the way that I think it needs to be talked about.
All right, Barbara, then Brian.
I withdraw the motion.
Barbara withdraws the motion. Brian?
I agree with Kristen, and also I think that these other policies or handbooks that Jen and others are referring to, I think the board has to see everything before we make any action.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to table this and send it back to policy. If policy needs legal counsel to weigh in on this at some point, then again.
Well, policy really, we don't have a policy committee meeting right now. I don't know how we're doing committee meetings.
Well, you're right.
And we don't usually meet in the summer either. But if board members want to really dig into it, like we did at policy committee, the policies are referenced there, the JI and JICD. The student handbook and the rights and responsibilities handbook are all online under the documents tab on the district website. So, I mean, there's no hurry on this. We're not going back to school. So I would just encourage everybody to, take the time and look it over. Call me if you have any questions. It's a lot of information. And
Okay.
some of it is in JICD as it's prescribed by law.
Right.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
it's really in the board's hands. I mean, I don't even think the policy committee's work is done here. It's really in the board's hands at this point.
Mhm.
Okay, but you're saying that if we don't, can you tell me which policy, if the board doesn't make this change, you're saying that this policy is now in conflict with which policy?
JICD.
Okay. So we need to, the board is going to have to see both of these policies together.
Correct. And this was part of the
recommend you-
conversation we had with council.
Correct. I would say you probably should with Attorney O'Shaughnessy, and he actually recommended rescinding it. That was the
right
comments that went to the policy committee. That's neither here nor there. That same law firm was the law firm that said we needed to bring these to the board because of this policy. So that's
right.
the conflict.
Okay. So we're going to table this for now. I'll work with Jen and Lee, and we'll get this back to the board at some point here.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I need to pull back here and figure out where I am. Okay, the next school board goals. If you go into your agenda packet, you will see what the goals were for last year. I think suffice it to say that one of the main driving goals for this year will be to work through the issues associated with withdrawal and the transition. So if people want to send me goals for probably not the next meeting if we end up meeting next week, but in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, then we can start to put some goals together. Maybe the board can have a work session, a virtual work session if we are not able to get back into the buildings, and come up with some goals and look at the goals that we have not really achieved this year and start to draft some. I liked these goals because they were quite concise. I don't want to spend pages and pages of going through goals, especially where we're in a transition year. So people will, if you can send them to me, that would be great. Remember, we have a 5-year strategic plan, and that plan should be driving what these goals are. And we're now approaching year 3 in this strategic plan. So we need to look at those as we move these goals forward. Any questions on that? All right, moving down to update on financials, Mr. Dowd.
Hi, yes, the financials have been posted. I don't know if anyone has any questions on those. As of right now, in terms of projections for year-end figures and numbers, I think that we'll have some guidance as some of the vendor discussions that we'll be having will be informative for where we end up at the end of the year. So I do have that coming up here, hopefully in the next either tomorrow or Monday, to get an idea where we're at with our vendors. So, are there any questions that the board has?
I have a question, Kim.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Jeff, do you anticipate looking at your, what's the word I'm looking for? Encumbrances and adjusting?
Now or at the end of the year?
Well, at some point. I mean, there's some encumbrances in there that we know won't be used at this point.
Oh, yes. As we go along, this is around the time of the year that we start closing out purchase orders, and a lot of the purchase orders that are out there create the encumbrances. And so now that we have a better idea where we are for the rest of the year, I think that'll determine and dictate what our expenditure pattern is going to look like. So around the time of the year that we end up closing out those those encumbrances. And you're talking about on the financial report.
Well, I'm talking about on the financial report, but I'm also, I'm looking at, and by the way, thank you for the financial report for March. But now that we know we're not going back, until September, a perfect example is the NHIAAs. They canceled their spring season. So now we have in athletics, what we encumbered to pay officials will not be encumbered anymore.
Correct.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm wondering if those adjustments can stop being made now that we have some definitive answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is the time of the year that we begin that process anyway to look at anything that we have open from the year. But Sheila, yes, as we know that we have some determination now as to what the rest of the year is going to look like, I think that's very informative on our being able to take a better look and really be able to close out what we're not going to be using.
That's what I'm aiming towards, because it's very murky right now.
Well, it became a little bit more clear
right
today.
But it's been pretty murky. So that now that we have some definitive answers, I'll be honest with you, I don't know about anybody else on this board, but I'm a little worried about shortfalls as far as our towns are concerned and property taxes. So, anything we can do to help out and return, anything we can to the towns to help them out would be, I think, beneficial in the long run. But, now that we have definitive answers, I think it would be a good time to start looking at those.
I agree. And for all board members, I will let you know under the new electronic document signature workflow, I did send out, and I wanted to wait until we were on this meeting, I did send out the vouchers, the AP vouchers, but I wanted to make a note that those vouchers, that there are 3 of them, because we're paying out of 3 different funds, which we normally do. But I think up until now, we've probably only, you probably only approved or reviewed expenditures electronically through the general fund. So the point of it is that there are, you'll receive that electronic workflow document, but there are 3 places to review and sign if you are in agreement. And obviously, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know.
Forgot I was muted. Go ahead.
So my favorite question is, I noticed on the school goals, the goal is to have the audit done by March. How are we doing on that?
I think we're doing about as well as we can be doing. I did reach out, and actually I was in contact with our auditor regarding, what, if any, implications existed relating to field work and, any complications that they may have. And I think between us, we'll be able to work it out. Obviously, there have been a few things that have come up as of late, rather unexpectedly, that have thrown a little bit of a damper on that effort, but it's got to get wrapped up very soon. We don't like to have it open any later than it is.
So just to be clear, this is for the books that closed on July 1st, 2019, correct?
June 30th, 2019, correct, yeah.
June, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? So you would be looking to maybe come back the first meeting in May to update us?
On the financials or on the audit?
Yes.
Or
well, both would probably be good.
Yeah, I can do that. I think we'll have some definitive answers at that time as to what our spend rate is going to be relative to some of the contracts that we are part of right now, and we'll have a very good idea as to what our departments at the school levels are going to be spending as well. So that'll be a good date.
Okay, great.
Kim, can I ask one more question?
Sean, then Sheila.
Yeah, I was just wondering, relative to this audit, can we get an update when it's going to be completed, working with our auditors and what they're going to need for the scope? Because I can say right now in the town of Danville, we haven't missed a beat. We are just having to scan documents that they requested. They're doing their field work remotely, and it's working quite well, to be honest with you. And I think it's actually working better. So I would hope to see the same kind of service given to our community as well.
You save on the travel cost too to get them out to the building. So
Okay, so we'll get an update on that and we'll get an updated financials. We should hopefully have a better idea contractually where we may have some savings as we approach the end of the school year and budget year.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Dr. Farah.
Welcome.
First, in board packets, we've made an effort to try to get these to you by noontime, and I know there's been a couple references about timestamps. I want to make it clear, like when the last document goes in, that's the last timestamp. So if 90% of the packet's there and something gets added late, that's not when the whole packet went in. So I mean, Kathy Belcher is doing a fantastic job getting this information out, and things come up late. So I just wanted to make that point. So in your packets, you had a couple of things added late today after the governor's announcement, the last day of school. There's another piece in there about staff contracts and hiring. Take a look at the boiler inventory that you asked for, and also the LED lighting. What I asked staff today to look at is, based on the governor, his announcement today, talked a little bit about summer and extended school year and summer school, and thinking that those will probably have to be done remotely. So we're taking a look at both of those to see how we could go about that. We have a public hearing on a donation. We have $7,769.20 donation from the Jeremy Graysick Memorial Scholarship Fund to provide assistance to the valedictorian of the Timberlane Regional High School in honor of Major Jeremy J. Graysick. Regardless of the individual's choice of school, field of study, or other financial need. Donations of over $5,000 require a public hearing. These hearings are provided to announce the information to the public and allow for public input. We've reached out to legal counsel to see how to best hold the required public hearing in light of the executive order that waives public input for school board meetings. So we'll have to get that figured out about how to do that. So that's where that is right now. We have that donation that we want to accept. Last piece announcement. I know I'm not quite sure if Mike Mescal had reached out to you, but we had a vacancy. We had a resignation in Plastow. That budget committee member has been selected. That's former school board member Susan Sherman. So I'd like to congratulate. She didn't retire for long, but she's back on the budget committee. Has not been sworn in yet, but that selection has been made.
Okay, great.
Congratulations, Sue.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to personnel report.
Excellent. The personnel report. I have two renominations for you. I made reference to this, that these renominations will come up periodically through our meetings through now and through the summer. So we have two that were ready. Jose Franco Mendez, who's a high school Spanish teacher, and Barbara Kane, who by contract, I'm allowed to approve somebody to rescind a retirement announcement. So Barbara has rescinded that and would like to come back. So I'd like to put those two forward. She's a teacher at the Pollard School.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for those two professional not renominations.
I'll make that motion.
Sean makes the motion. Brian seconds. I will take a roll call vote. Kat, please.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mackmer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
We have two retirements. I'd like to take them separately if I may.
Sure.
First is our Sandown Central School nurse who's been with us for 9 years, Mary Hatton. She's just done an outstanding job there, caring for our little owls, and we wish her well, congratulate her. So I'd be looking for a motion to accept her retirement.
I'll make the motion to accept the retirement of Mary Hutton with gratitude for her service.
Cheryl makes the motion.
Second.
Barbara seconds. Kat, could you take the vote?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Metzler?
Thank you, Dr. Farah. This second retirement and is very difficult. You know, as always, you know, you have people that come across your life and your career, and this individual, our principal at Atkinson Academy, Kathy Deotis, who's been with us for 46 years, is just it's just truly amazing. You know, blessed to have had her in my life. She's like extended family. She's just incredible. A true educational leader. You know, a year ago she came in my office and tried to retire, and I gave her the letter back and said, "Put it in your pocketbook. I'm not accepting it." Thought I had her for another year, but clearly she has determined that this is her time, and you know, nobody does it better. You know, we love Kathy, and I know Atkinson loves Kathy, and I know Timberlane loves Kathy. So I'd like to congratulate her and certainly you know, just thank her for everything, both personally and professionally, on behalf of all the lives that she's touched. She's just truly a remarkable woman, and you know, it's our loss, but we're so happy for her and her family.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the retirement of Ms. Deotis?
I will make a motion to accept the retirement of Kathy Deotis with sincere regret. I wish there was a way that we could not accept her retirement.
Okay, Mr. Boyle makes the motion. Is there a second?
I will second that. Congratulations, Mrs. Deotis. Well deserved.
Jen Silva from Atkinson seconds. Will you take that vote? And it's amazing the work that she's done at Atkinson and the number of years, and the entire district, I'm sure, is grateful for her work and all her mentoring of, I'm sure, other staff over the course of many years. And hopefully she'll be around to help people out, even though she's retired.
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Mrs. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva.
Yes.
Okay, great. Anything else on personnel reports, Dr. Metzler?
Oh, that's it, Dr. Farah. Thank you.
Okay. Any committee reports of the school board? I think the only committee that might have anything to report would be the CIP, but I don't think we're there yet, right, Brian?
I have nothing to report. No.
Okay. We did have a discussion, the superintendent and Kristen Savage and I, we usually meet the next day after this meeting to set the agenda for the following meeting as to how we're going to move forward with these committees. Now, in this virtual environment, it makes it difficult because they would be considered public meetings, which means we'd have to set up Zoom, and you know, it could be quite onerous. So we're just kind of delaying to see what happens here with the state, which I think we'll know here in probably the next day or so as to what the state's going to do in part as far as continuing the shutdown. I don't think there's anything pressing if they're looking to open up in May, but if we continue on much longer, we're going to have to make some sort of decision as to how to get some of these meetings going forward. Speaking of meetings, our next regular meeting is May 7th. I don't know, and I could talk to Dr. Metzler about this tomorrow. We probably need to be looking at another date before that just to update the board, and there may be a necessity for the board to take some action given how everything seems to be in flux. So, Dr. Metzler, what are your thoughts on a next meeting date? I'm not comfortable with pushing it out to May 7th, knowing that the board may need to take action on some items.
Certainly, you know, I mean, I don't know if it's every Thursday. I mean, or does it have to be Thursdays? Because every day seems like the same day.
Yeah, it does.
These days. So, you know, it could be that one. I don't know. You tell me. We have that vacation piece in there. I don't know what people will be doing, but you know, people are looking to take a break, whatever that looks like for individuals. I don't know what that means for your lives or other people's lives that I'll be asking to generate work from. But I guess we could discuss it tomorrow. You know, we could pick another day.
Yes, if board members have any day of the week that they can't make, any evening, let me know. I know some board members, most board members are probably working remotely, but it's still hard to get together during the day. I know, for example, that I'm tied up during the day a lot. So if there's any evening that you can't make, maybe we will make it a little sooner, but not necessarily on a Thursday. School vacation is the week of the 27th, correct?
That's correct.
So next week seems like it might be a little early, but pushing it all the way out to May 7th seems a little late. So I would say maybe tentatively, I don't know. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I would think maybe maybe Monday the 25th, if we felt we needed, oh, sorry, not wrong.
27th.
The 27th, or if not, early in the week, like May 4th on a Monday.
Yeah,
But
May
we could talk
4th,
more about that.
I think May 4th may make a little more sense for workflow in terms of, because you got to figure the staff, whatever the items are, getting them ready and having them available to present. I don't know what people's lives look like during that week vacation. If people have things that they're doing or whatever, I don't know.
I don't know either, but I just know there's not much going on. So
Mondays are not good for me,
true.
Kim.
This is true.
What?
Mondays are not good for
Oh,
me.
right. Mondays are not good for you. Well, are you meeting every week or every other week?
Every other week, and we meet
Okay.
next Monday.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Is there anything else? As Mr. Dowd said, there's a voucher that you'll need to sign electronically. They are working, and you'll see in your board packets how, all these teacher contracts and things need to be signed by the board chair. That's all going to have to be somehow done remotely. So there's a process here that they're working on. Thank you, Mr. Paradis. I see you're on the line for the updates on the LED and the boilers. So Brian, you'll find that an interesting document there, I'm sure. And I know, Barbara, you had questions on the lamping on the lights. So I think that's hopefully will answer your questions. Barbara.
Yeah, that's good. Hi, I'm just going back to the thing about committee meetings, and I just want to push back on the idea that these are difficult. I've been having we've had a couple of old home day committee meetings just that we recorded and then put up on Vimeo later, and that seemed to work. And we had the call, the speakerphone. It's not that hard to run a meeting.
Well, the problem is that these meetings have to be noticed and they're public meetings, so they would have to be done the same way that we do a school board meeting.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
No, it's not that hard, but it's just one more added. And I don't see there's nothing really pressing in terms of the meeting. So now
the ones that are starting to prep for the budget. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I agree with you, but we should be knowing here in the next, I thought there was an announcement by the governor tomorrow as to what the state was doing here after May 4th.
Well, let's just operate on assuming it's not going to open up.
Okay, no, that's good. Well, we'll have a discussion tomorrow when we meet with the superintendent about how to move forward, or what happens, as I said, in the fall if we open up and then we close down.
Okay. And then just thank you for the LED report. I do appreciate that and getting that information. I did have a question about the buildings. We've got all the lights turned off. We've got the heat turned down, all that, right?
To the extent feasible, yes. Yeah, he was shut off last Monday.
Great, thank you. Sheila?
First, I'd like to thank Gary for the boiler report. That was pretty great. I liked seeing what the dates were that they came in, when they're scheduled to be replaced. I really liked that executive summary. But so much I liked it that I'm wondering if we can get one for the roofs.
Is that a feasible request?
Not sure if Gary is able to unmute, but I can certainly discuss that with him and see if, there he is.
Hey, I figured it out. Yeah, Sheila, I can get that for you. It's going to take some time, seeing as though there are
Of course, Gary, I'm sure it will take time.
There are a ton of rooftops, considerably more than the boilers themselves. So Yeah,
No, I understand that, but the picture you gave us was so good
oh,
on the
man.
boilers that, to look at that for the roofs would be fantastic, only because we'd be able to know when the roof was replaced last.
Oh, you're talking roofs, not rooftops. Okay, yes, I can do that as well.
I'm talking roofs, like,
Okay,
the middle school roofs that we were discussing last week, those 2 or 3 sections.
Yep, I can get that information for you. Absolutely.
Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, obviously leaks are going to be, take precedence over old roofs or whatever, but it would really give us a good idea, planning
Correct.
what has to be done coming up.
Yep, I can do that.
We replaced those roofs last year, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to add on to that point, which I agree with, those documents, even though they're not really CIP in one sense, they are in another, because they represent significant capital improvements to the buildings and the grounds. And I know, Mr. Dodd, I think we've had a discussion about budgeting as in a different way sometimes, where you look at really what your true budget is when you bring all those items into your budget cycle and what those replacements are. So I think we need to, and again, this is probably overreach on my part, but get some sort of document or binder so that when somebody leaves, that Mr. Paradis, the next person in line, doesn't have to do this sort of work again. They already have it somewhere. So.
Mr. Gary, before he left, did really an outstanding job putting together an exceptionally comprehensive list of our buildings and all of the different mechanical aspects and physical aspects of those buildings and our grounds, and had some estimated timeframes. Very detailed, perhaps too detailed in a way, but at serving as a great check on the work that I'm sure that Gary is able to do now, to be able to go back, bounce off, and make sure that we're validating what's being included.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jen?
I was looking at it, I'm just curious, the Pollard, there's a Hydrotherm 2006, it says being replaced this current year. Was there something, so some of the ones that are older than that are slotted to be replaced further out than that. Was there, and that's the only one of that type that's on the list.
So yeah, Jen, I can speak to that. So 2 years ago, we replaced 2 hydrotherms that were down with 2 high efficiency gas boilers. We were slated this year to do the 3rd one to get that old hydrotherm out of there. So that is why that was supposed to be done last year, but I don't think the CIP had it in there. So that's why we added it this year.
My point was, though, that was installed in 2006, and then we've got these other ones down below that are, much older than that. I mean, there's one at the middle school from 1983 even.
Right.
And have a longer life expectancy than that other one, huh?
Those ones that, yeah, the 4 at the middle school that are running right now that were installed in 1983 are actually running really efficient, really well. They're old boilers that were designed to run forever. So that's why we opted to do the Pollard boiler and not something different like the middle school.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Barbara?
So why don't we get ones that are designed to run forever now? It looks like it barely lasted 12 years, the new one.
So that's why we are putting in that Bosch Baderis. Those have had a good track record so far. We've done some research on those, and those are high efficiency boilers that we're putting in at Pollard, which have run phenomenal over the past 2 winters over there.
Yeah. Great. All right. Any other items? So I will let you know once we set a date for the next board meeting. If you have any items that you want for the agenda, please let me know. Don't forget that we'll be looking for school board goals. I'll send an email out to remind people. We spoke with council today, and it was brought up at the meeting At the SAU meeting yesterday, the Timberlane board and the Hampstead board will be looking to work together as we move forward in this transition year to ensure that both boards can come to a mutual agreement in regards to the withdrawal of Timberlane from the SAU. We really need to start moving this forward. I know we called for a 3-month transition window, but the budget year will be starting here, as Barbara mentioned. July, August is when we have to really start thinking about staffing for that next year and start building the budget. So we will be, the board is going to have to do a lot of work here in terms of what this transition is going to look like and what that's going to mean for staffing for us. But we are committed, I think Hampstead's committed to trying to move this forward because there's also people's livelihoods here as we transform from one SAU to a second SAU and to give people the opportunity to make decisions. So thank you. All right, that being said, we'll adjourn remarkably early at 9:06 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you all the staff. Dr. Metzler.
1 minute.
Night.
Oh, sorry. Oh, hold on, Dr. Metzler. Go ahead.
It off of last week. You were at 9:07.
Yeah, I'm consistent. That's what you can say. Thank you. Right.